Learning a language is in and of itself a skill. I started learning Spanish when I was about 14 years of age. It took me about 2.5 years to get actually conversational in it. Not even really truly fluent, just conversational. I could hold a conversation, I could talk about things. But I found the more languages that I began to study and the more time I spent doing that, the better I became at the skill set itself. So now I speak French, Spanish, Irish, and Japanese, conversational sort of ability in Russian, Italian, Brazilian Portuguese, and Romanian. I'm Quinn. I have a degree in linguistics with a minor in teaching English as a second language, and I'm currently studying to get my master's in applied linguistics. And I'm going to be sharing with you my methods and my ways of learning a language. This channel is going to cover linguistics, historical linguistics, sociolinguistics, languages, learning languages, how to do it. So if that interests you, subscribe, like, comment, and tell me what you want to see from this channel. What kind of videos do you want to see? What languages are you learning? So let's get into learning a language. We're going to start with the mindset, which is before you start studying anything, the foundation upon which you are going to be learning this new language. You will need to be motivated. This is not a sprint, this is a marathon. This is essentially a lifelong process, even for a native speaker of a given language. You, the person who is a first language speaker of English, you're still learning words like cap, riz, skibbity toilet. These came up like within the last 5 years. That's very new. You're still learning words. Do you see what I'm saying? So let alone for a second language. This is not hacks, this is not cheat codes, this is how do you learn a language properly. So you have to be motivated or else you're just not going to learn. You're going to give up or your learning is going to be very poor. For French, I grew up speaking and hearing it basically constantly. So it was relatively easy to start studying that. When it came to Spanish, I grew up in Southern California, so you hear that everywhere. The music, it's spoken around you constantly. It's in the food, all of these things. So I fell in love with the language and I fell in love with the cultures associated to it. So many of my friends and people I care about were Spanish speakers. Then when it came to Irish, I am an American of Irish descent. So it felt like a way to connect with my culture, to learn the language. That kept me very motivated. And when it comes to Japanese, I love manga and anime, and I love Japanese martial arts. So karate, jiu-jitsu, kendo, I love those things. So that also kept me very motivated. You're going to have to find those things that you can connect yourself to in that language. Now, let's say you have to learn a language for work or you're moving somewhere or something like that, right? You're like, it's hard. I can't really find something to motivate myself. Fine, okay. Now, you're going to have to connect your language to things you love. So you're going to have to start studying your language in terms of things you already love, like your passions. Do you like music? Do you like video games or sports? Learn about the vocabulary and grammar related to those things, and that will take you a very long way. Another very important thing to understand is that your language is not English. The structure to express even the most basic fundamental thought is completely different. It's not Mad Libs. You can't just copy paste words that you learn in your target language into English structure. So in English, we use this word and this type of word, and so I'm just going to try and copy paste. Nope, doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. It won't work, and you're going to frustrate yourself, especially if you try finding words that nobody uses to express a thought in your new language in a way that is as similar as possible to your English learning. Don't do it. Just accept without English bias that what you're learning is completely different structurally at a fundamental level. Go into it like a baby as much as you can. Now that we've got the mindset out of the way, the first thing I like to actually sit down and study is the way the sound system of your language works, the phonology of your language. The reason being is it's the first thing that babies actually start to learn through a process we call babbling. Babbling is a lot like when you first open a new game and you start just pressing buttons to figure out what things do. Okay, so this is how I move around, WASD. Okay, so the E key is to select things. Oh, okay, the mouse I move around. That is what a baby's doing with their language. They hear sounds coming from the mouths of people around them, and they start to try to imitate them. They start figuring out rules about sounds. Okay, so I hear this sound between vowels. I don't hear it at the beginning of a word or at the end of a word. It's just in the middle. And then they start to group sounds together. They start to hone in on, okay, what sounds are actually used in my language? An example of these kinds of sound rules in English would be the letter T. At the beginning of a word or at the beginning of a stressed syllable, such as the word tattoo, it's pronounced t. However, it's not always pronounced t. In the middle of two vowels, it's pronounced r. Butter. At the very least, if that T is starting an unstressed syllable. So if it was butter, it's a different thing. It's not a word, but you see what I'm saying. It's butter. Tattoo, the word beginning, and because of the fact that that next syllable is stressed, so it's tattoo both times, but it's butter, water. It's ra 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 ra, like in Spanish, the Spanish R, ra. And at the end of words, T is pronounced like at, but, what, that. There are three different noises, but your brain groups them as one. That is phonology. So essentially, I'm asking you to babble. When you're watching movies or TV shows or playing games or listening to music in your target language, I want you to sit there and try to actually repeat what's being said. Start with little sounds, like individual, like, oh, they say this sound, okay, or the r. Pick out individual sounds if words are a little difficult at the beginning, and then try and move on to words. Or mach. I hear that, okay. Try and picking out words, and then move on to phrases. Do you see what I'm saying? Try to mimic the sound of native speech to the best of your ability, because that's what babies do. It's how babies learn. Now, moving on from phonology, we're going to start learning about the grammar of a language. And the reason I put it in air quotes is because I do not mean the rules you learn in like an English class. I before E except after C, may I go to the bathroom, not can I go to the bathroom, or it's leviosa, not leviosa. No. According to linguists and the field of linguistics, those rules are relatively irrelevant in terms of what is actually spoken. To us, if native speakers say and understand it, it's correct. When we say grammar, we're talking about the rules that we as speakers of a language share and understand to create meaning and to communicate. We do not mean a societally, institutionally enforced artificial standard. Now, it's useful to study the standard and to understand it and to use it, but again, you're limiting yourself very heavily if you only hyper-focus on the standard. Don't limit yourself. Language is inherently creative. Shakespeare invented like hundreds, if not thousands, of different words. Invented them out of thin air. Eyeball made that up. Methinks made that up. Language is creative. Don't limit yourself. Now, grammar consists of morphology and of syntax. Morphology is the way words change their form for different contexts. For example, in Spanish, verbs conjugate. Let's take a verb, hablar. Hablar means to speak. If I want to say I speak in the present tense, yo hablo. You speak, tú hablas. He speaks, él habla, she speaks, ella habla. We speak, nosotros hablamos. Y'all speak, ustedes hablan, at the very least in Mexico and in South America, but you will still hear vosotros habláis. Again, whatever, who cares? And then for they, ellos or ellas hablan. That is an example of morphology. Another example of morphology would be in Russian, and in other languages grammatically like it, they have something called noun cases, where the noun will change its form based off of the situation grammatically it finds itself in. So, for example, machina is car in the normal sort of form, the nominative case. But if I want to say I see the car, I would say я вижу машину. Машину, that ending change. Or if I want to say I'm in the car, I'd say я в машине. Again, the ending changes. Now, syntax is the internal structure and internal logic of a language. Things like word order, the way noun categories are grouped together. So, feminine versus masculine nouns, that stuff is all syntax. Oftentimes, morphology contains syntax in and of itself. An example I would say is that, going back to Russian, if I were to say, I see the car, я вижу машину. I could also say, я машину вижу, or вижу я машину, based off of what I want to emphasize in the sentence. Because all the syntactical information, all the information as to what is doing what to whom or to what, is communicated in these endings. In English and in Mandarin, however, this meaning is communicated with word order. So I need to say, in this order of words, I see the car. I can't say I, the car see, or I, car the see, or anything like that. I have to say I see the car, because according to our rules in English as English speakers, that word order syntactically tells you everything you need to know. And there's very little morphology that tells you any of that. And where we do have morphology, like, for example, I do, you do, he or she does, but it's not necessarily one of those things where you need it. And there are plenty of dialects that don't even use it. I do, you do, he do, we do, they do, y'all do, etc. So morphology, the way words change for different contexts, sometimes
always includes syntactic information. Morphology always includes syntactic information.
includes syntactic information, and then syntax is itself the sort of internal logic and internal structure of a language. Now, once you've used a relatively small number of vocabulary words and phrases to get a really good grasp of the phonology of your language and then the grammar, aka the syntax and morphology of your language, now it's time to start working in what I call comprehensible immersion. Now, comprehensible immersion is based off of the idea of comprehensible input, which is itself very much backed up by linguistics data and research to say that it's an incredibly useful tool, basically essential for really getting fluent in a language. And what it is input, aka reading and listening, so passive absorption things at your level, at a level you can comprehend, comprehensible input. Comprehensible immersion is immersing yourself in as many ways as possible in comprehensible input. I doubt I've actually invented this term. I just like to think that I did because I came up with it and I was like, oh, this is clever. So the most accessible and easy way for beginners to start immersing themselves in comprehensible input is through music. It is easy to memorize. It's very easy to do passively. So what I like to do is I start by taking either an album or making a playlist of songs in my target language. I'll study each song in said playlist one by one, break it down by verse, and break it down line by line. I will practice saying each line very slowly, just as if it were just plain text. So like, let's take Debí tirar más foto. Debí tirar más foto de cuando te tuve. And you do that for every single line, but let's just stay on the first line for now. And then, once you've got the pronunciation down, you start taking notes exactly on what these words mean. So, debí. So this is a form of the verb deber. Okay, I look it up. It's okay, that's deber. That means must or ought to or need. Okay, cool. What's that I with the little accent over it? What does that mean? Oh, it turns out what that means, and you can look this up. It's the past form for I. And that's morphology. When you say debí, okay, I should have, or I ought to have, or I needed to. Tirar. Okay, I know this one. That's the infinitive. Ma, okay, that's more. Fotos, de, of, cuando, when, te. That's the, what is that word? What the heck? Oh, I'm going to look that up. Oh, so that's the object form of you. So when I say I see you, or I know you, I put the te in front of it. Te conozco, te veo, etc. And then tuve. What is this word? You look it up. Past tense of tener for I. That's not teni. That doesn't make sense. Oh, it's irregular. So just by looking up these words, even line by line, you will organically start to learn this new vocabulary. And so now, like, oh, okay, I know what it means and I can say it. Now you add the melody and the rhythm. Debí tirar más foto de cuando te tuve. Debí darte más beso y abrazo la vez. You see what I'm saying? It's such a easy way to get new vocabulary into your head. So you do that for every verse in every song in this playlist, and then you just start listening to it. Do you listen to it in the car on the way to work? Do you listen to music while you're in the shower, while you're studying, while you're playing video games? All of those places are an opportunity to be learning, given that you studied the lyrics of these songs in these playlists. Next thing we're going to move on to doing, once you have a little bit more of a basic grasp of the language and you've got some decent input skills, now we're going to be rewatching movies and shows that you're already very, very familiar with. Now, the types of shows I'm talking about are the ones you've seen several times through, that you know the characters, you know the plot, you know the lines, you know the details, you know the lore, all of that stuff. I'm talking to you people who have seen Grey's Anatomy several times through, or people who have seen Friends like a dozen times through. Crazy, by the way. I'm talking to you people who have seen House MD several times. I'm talking to all of the people. You have that show that you've seen several times. Have you seen Family Guy 7 times through? Embarrassing, first of all. But It's useful information now. We're going to be setting the subtitles and the dub to our target language, whatever that is for you, and we're going to be rewatching the entire thing cover to cover. Oh, yeah. Your prior knowledge of these shows will make it so much easier to spot not only words and grammar you're familiar with, but new words. So think to yourself things like, what was this character saying in this scene the first time I saw it? What was the point of this scene narratively? And then you can sort of deduce from that new vocabulary. If you end up just being completely lost, fine, pause it. Right, pause it, look at the words, and then really draw upon your knowledge of this show in that moment or this movie in that moment and think, okay, what are they saying? I know somewhere deep down what it is they're saying. I was studying Romanian, I was rewatching the Clone Wars, and I was like, oh man, what is this scene about? And I'm thinking, okay, so Ahsoka was just at the Jedi Temple, and Anakin is, obviously he's asking people about things. What is he saying? Oh, that's right, he's asking the cops if they'd seen her, and all of these things, basically, is what I'm saying. And if you really need to, go ahead and look up the words, but be taking notes as well. It's so useful. And so when you're rewatching this show, do so with the intention of, at the very least, absorbing some part of the language. So even if you feel pretty lost in terms of what's being said, it's at the very least useful to be babbling, to be repeating what you hear, noises, words, phrases. Now, the next way is a little more niche, but it's going to be replaying video games that you're very familiar with over again in your target language, just like with the shows and the movies. If you can, and by that I mean if you really understand your operating system really well, button for button, you can set your operating system to that target language. If you don't know the system very well, or it's not necessary to get into the game and do that, no need. It's just also a decent way of comprehensible immersing yourself. You're going to be using in these games your game knowledge to help fill in the blanks for words that are unfamiliar and to reinforce words that might be already familiar. Now, the games I like to use for comprehensible immersion are the From Software games. So Bloodborne, Sekiro, all the Dark Souls games, Elden Ring, that kind of stuff. So, and the reason is because I've played each of them through several times. So this game, 400 hours. Oof. 114 hours. 88. How much? 360. You get the point. It's a lot. Too much time. But the point is I have so much information in my brain now about these games that is, for all intents and purposes, useless. But for language learning purposes, it's not useless. Okay, continuar. Oh, that probably means continue. Cargar juego. What does that mean? Well, in the English version of the game, that's usually where it says load game. So that's probably what that means. And then nuevo juego? Oh, nuevo means new. New game. Oh, fantastic. Do you see what I'm saying? You're going to take your knowledge of even just like this, bloque de piedra de sangre. Oh, I think that's supposed to say bloodstone chunk. Oh, I see. That's what bloque de piedra, a block of stone. Oh, what is this? Regresar al sueño del cazador. I know what this, wow, these are all new words to me. I know that it's supposed to say return to the hunter's dream. Ah, regresar means to return. Sueño, dream, del cazador, of the hunter. Okay, let's do that actually. Do you see what I'm saying? You can use your ridiculous knowledge of these games, because I know you people are out there that have played hundreds of hours of these games. So you have a really encyclopedic knowledge of them. So I'm controlling one-handed, so don't mind me. I'm going to go over here. Lápida de pesadilla del cazador. Pesadilla del cazador. What is that? Well, okay, I know that it's supposed to say the nightmare of the hunter, or the hunter's nightmare. Oh, pesadilla, that's nightmare. Fantastic. And this one. Oh, wow, I know that that's supposed to say the lighthouse cabin. Oh, cabaña is cabin, and then faro. Do you see what I'm saying? Use your innate knowledge of hundreds of hours of games to your advantage. Cannot speak. So now we're going to be moving on to useful resources and apps online. So the one I'm the most familiar with is LingQ, and I really like LingQ. It's very much based in comprehensible input. Pick your level, and then you can just read and listen along at the same time to language at your level. It's fantastic. When you click on words, if you have paid for the actual subscription, it'll show you what the word means. So it's behind a paywall, that feature, but it's still very useful. I use it all the time when I'm on the bus, when I'm just waiting for a manga chapter or something to come out and I have nothing else to read. It's LingQ is really good. The next one that I really like that I just have used far less is LingoPie. Now, LingoPie is taking the idea of comprehensible input also to the max, and it shows you a show in your target language, and it gives you detailed subtitles, not only in the target language, it gives you a literal transcription of what's happening right underneath, and then it also can give you just more naturally translated and localized English version. I love it. I just haven't used it that often. If either of you companies want to collab. Now, we're going to move on to the owl in the room. Here's my impression if Duolingo was an owl. I'm incredibly inconsistent as a product. That's my impression. Duolingo is mixed bag of results. For languages with lots of resources, for languages with lots of support and lots of resources that already exist, such as Spanish and French, other colonial languages, languages of privilege, the courses are good. Lots of lessons, great charts, good audio. But for languages with less resources and less attention to them, the lessons really suffer. They use AI, the sections, they're usually themed in some way. They're very bare bones for a lot of the ones that aren't super popular languages to learn. Like for Japanese, it was relatively bare bones, and there was lots of AI, I could tell. Don't like that on a personal level, but it also is just not conducive to learning. And then when it came to Irish, I was quite literally genuinely offended by the fact that most of the audios were either people who weren't native speakers of the language, and so and beyond that, they were just like mispronouncing things, sure. And then secondly, so much of it was AI, and it was even further, it was anglicized in a way that even people who speak Irish with a very thickly English language accent do, it was even worse. Like instead of saying "kafa" because cafe, right? But instead of saying "kafa," it would still say like "kafi" in their weird, freaky AI voice. It's like genuinely like a detriment to the movement, in my opinion, for the Irish language. Like it was bad. So Duolingo is very much a mixed bag. If it's good for your language, fantastic. Use it. The charts are nice. The audio when they actually care about the language, like for Spanish, is really good. But if that's not your language, I would completely avoid it entirely, honestly. Language learning has been made a chore. You show up to a classroom you hate for 4 years, staring at charts and listening to a dialect that no one actually speaks, and you come out the other end learning next to nothing about your language. It doesn't have to be this way, and it shouldn't be this way. Instead of wasting 4 years in a classroom, you could spend 6 months to a year studying in a way that incorporates it into your daily routine in ways that you find fun and interesting, things that you actually care about. It should be exciting. It should be stressless. It should be intuitive. However, it is like exercising. If you want results, you must put in the time and effort that it requires to do so. None of these tips that I've given you should be used in isolation either. And they shouldn't be the only things you're doing. You should be doing several things at once to acquire a language. However, I stress to you that language is not what your English teacher or your Spanish teachers have taught you it is. It is not a hallway full of tripwires. It is not a set of rules dropped from heaven by God into your lap on a holy tablet. It's what we use every single day to express ourselves, to record our thoughts, and to share them. It's beautiful, it's creative, and it's one of the most fundamental parts of human existence. If you like this video, feel free to share it with your friends. Please do. Like it. Comment the language that you want to start learning. Comment the types of resources you want to see me putting on this channel, the types of videos you'd like to see, and subscribe to see more content like this. Thank you for lending your time. I'll see you in the next video. Salam.